And then the United States Corporation, we're the military arm of that whole Rothschild power structure. And then there's the Vatican, which is closely aligned with Israel.
And the Bolsheviks, who created concentration camps, just all magically disappeared and went to Israel. Just kidding. Nope, not kidding at all. They all went to Israel.
Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. That was our friend Penny Kelly. And of course, the one, the only Candace Owens, who knocked it out of the park again in episode 6. It's time to pick a side, and at this point, I'd say you can pick the side of God and truth, or Rothschild and lies. We dissect it all in this one. Thanks for being here. Before we start, just a quick word about a valued sponsor. We've all seen the headlines about those miracle weight loss shots, but the 2026 data is officially in, and it's a wake-up call. A major analysis revealed that once people stop taking those injections, they regain an average of 60% of the weight within a year. Even worse, most of that gain is pure fat, but the muscle they lost stays gone, leaving them with a crashed metabolism and a body that's functionally older than when they began. That's why I know you're going to be obsessed with today's sponsor, GLP-1 Elevate. Instead of using needles to override your body's system, it uses clinically studied plant-based ingredients like metabolate to help your body naturally boost its own hunger control signals. You'll get the same fullness and fewer cravings, but without the scary side effects or the metabolic rebound. GLP-1 Elevate supports your goals while protecting your muscle, so you can actually keep the results for good. To celebrate Valentine's Day, get 50% off GLP-1 Elevate at trimwithsgt.com. Every order includes a complete support bundle with free VIP coaching for life, a 60-day money-back guarantee, and free express shipping on subscriptions. Head to trimwithsgt.com right now to claim your 50% discount before it expires. The link is below. Hey friends, welcome back. Thanks so much for being here. I'm really glad you tuned in for today's broadcast because it's going to get a little serious, and depending on what side of the aisle you're on, you may find yourself offended, but I assure you, our hearts are in the right place. Why? How do we know that? Because we put America first. Literally. That's the hope, that's the wish, and that was the promise from President Donald J. Trump. What you're looking at on my screen right here is an outline of Greater Israel. Now, why would they be doing this? Why are they trying to accomplish this, and what does it mean for the world? Well, let me remind you of what Senator Mike Huckabee just told Tucker Carlson in Israel.
Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
It would be fine if they took it all. What does that mean? That means that parts of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, parts of the West Bank, Lebanon, all of it, really, I guess, belongs to the House of Rothschild, and they have the right to take it all because they say they are Jews, the biblical Jews from the Bible, and guess who couldn't defend that claim? Mike Huckabee. Neither can the House of Rothschild. I want to introduce my guest, my returning guest, a friend of the show, naturopathic physician, researcher, truth teller, and prolific author. Penny Kelly is back. Penny, how are you?
I'm good. I'm really good. In spite of the craziness, I think we've been coming to this for a while, so we shouldn't be too surprised, but we should not get off track or get caught up in all the garbage being spewed. So, yeah.
Well, let's talk about the brass tacks and the facts as you see them and as I see them, because that's all we can do. Because guess what? Discourse and free speech is still legal, at least for a while, in the United States, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think that is one of the treasures. And I had this question that I was going to ask you right from the start. The question really is, have you listened to the wide range of I'll call it pundits, commenters, some really good analysts that are really only looking at the surface of things? Have you noticed that, or have you been?
Well, look, let's talk about it on the show as we get into it deeper, because I want to call out a
Okay.
few people, not for being bad people, but for trusting the plan. And maybe that's what you're driving at. I no longer trust the plan if it involves bombing girls' schools in Iran, if it involves bombing Lebanon and expanding the war scope with the state of Israel and partnering with the state of Israel in bombing men, women, and children in territories that do not belong to them. That's where I draw the line. But let me do one other thing. I always like to pay it forward, as you know.
Yeah.
By the way, Penny's site is pennykelly.com. But another guest that was planning to join us today is our friend Patty Greer. Patty's a friend of the show. We appreciate Patty. And this is her website, c60evo.com. And these are products I use. I highly recommend them. And I would just remind the audience that in the testing with the Ristar rats, the rats lived a whole lot longer. The rats that took C60 Evo lived a whole lot longer than the rats that didn't. This stuff is great. And I want to leave a link below just to pay it forward for our good friend Patty Greer, who couldn't be here today. Now, the other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to start with the elephant in the room. Penny, we've got to talk about the elephant in the room, and it's this. It's the lies. What am I talking about? I'm talking about President Donald J. Trump campaigning, literally telling the people that he's the no war president.
You know, we never got into a war with me. I have a great record. We had peace. We had prosperity. We had no wars. We had no wars that started no wars. We didn't have a war. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will expel the warmongers from our government. And we had no wars. When you see all the people that died in these horrible wars in the Middle East and everything else, countries didn't want us. Look at Trump. Just look at this guy. He's going to go to war. He's going to take us. No. Look at me. I'm the one that kept us out of war. You know, I'm the only president that didn't start a war. They like a war. They love wars. You know, they love killing people. It's so wonderful. You know, I'm the only president in many, many decades that didn't start a war.
All right, guys, are you getting the idea? Quote, we will expel the warmongers from our government. Well, when he said that, I don't think he was thinking of Bibi Netanyahu, was he?
Wow. That's pretty powerful, Sean. And so when I see something like that, it's been compiled, it's like, wow, what happened? Is that really Trump in there? That makes me doubt that that's really him. And I watched him.
Oh, it's him. See, that's the sad part. This cloning stuff that everybody talks about. We just saw that whole thing with Jim Carrey. Turns out it was an artist with a mask, pretending to be Jim
I didn't
Carrey,
see
sort of
that.
like an art project. That's all great. I love talking about that stuff. Here's the sad fact of the matter. That's really Donald J. Trump. The guy in the White House today, that's really him. And I'm sorry, but if we can't call out the lies that we were told, then not only aren't we free people, we're just robots.
Okay, so I have a question. I have another question. If we go back to the Q messages, one of the very first messages was the military is the only way. What did that mean? How can we take that and juxtapose that next to all those declarations of no war, I'm not going to start a war, I didn't start a war, I'm the president of no war. And yet, what was he referring to when he said the military is the only way? And when you look into that, when you feel into that, and you really, watch what has been happening, I have to say, he tried to do something with no war. I thought he was biting off more than he could chew, to be quite honest. If you're gonna take out the deep state, if you're gonna drain the swamp, you're talking about taking out the city of London. You're talking about taking out Israel. You're talking about taking down Washington, D.C. Those are the three prongs of that whole deep state thing. And it's huge. And this is something I learned in the last few months. I never realized that Hezbollah and Hamas and I think the Shia and the Houthis were all being funded, kind of kept going by Iran. And Iran was really being controlled by Great Britain. And that's, one of the things that I think the deep state is a master at doing is of setting people up to carry out their wishes so that they never look like the bad guy and they never get confronted. And that's kind of what I'm wondering, is that what's happening in this war with Iran? Is Trump going after, was he going to take out one of the other things? Let me back up another step. One of the things he said in Q, or one of the things Q said, if that's true, we're going to save Israel for last. And I thought, how is that going to work? And so there've been some speculation by a few people saying, well, he attacked Iran, Iran's attacking Israel, boom, Israel is taken out. But Israel, the people, I'm like, oh, I feel so bad for the people and the people of Iran. I have some Iranian friends. They're wonderful. They're smart. They're perceptive people. So it's like, okay, who's triggering who to do what to who? And I think that's the question that we are not seeing discussed enough. If Trump is taking out, if he's trying to get rid of the deep state, he's going to have to collapse the whole thing. And that reminded me of JFK Jr. saying, I'm going to expose my father's killers if I have to bring down everything. And it looks like Trump was trying to take out the city of London by taking out Iran and getting Iran to bomb Israel and to still preserve DC. And I don't think it's going to work. And I think we're going to have to rebuild a lot of things. But that whole process there of what's really happening, we don't know. Trump isn't saying what his intentions are or were, or what his goals are. Maybe he's planning to say, oh, I didn't realize that they were going to hit Israel. Well, he's not stupid. And so all of that, I think, might be an effort to get the clutches of the deep state, like to get them to let go. And because they really run everything. I have some facts here that I can read if you want.
Yeah, facts are always good. Facts are important. Let me just share a couple of thoughts with you.
Okay.
It's either one or the other. Okay. So if you're sitting at a poker table and you're not sure who the patsy is, it's probably you. That's the old saying. And the idea is this: he's lied about no new wars. Yeah. He explicitly stated no war with Iran. And here we are. So either this is part of some magical 6D chess, or it's not. Either there's good things that'll happen or there's not. And I'm starting to really wonder, because yesterday I emailed my friend Harley Schlanger. He's coming back on the show, I think, next week. And I emailed him about his former associate at LaRouche, Susan Kokinda, who has formed a organization called Prometheus Action. And she's very eloquent, but she's also very much one of these trust the plan people, a 6D chess person. And she's basically saying that Trump is in the process of neutering the royals in the city of London, etc.
Okay.
I ran that by Harley, and Harley, somebody who I trust more than just about anybody else as an historian and a man of integrity, had some very interesting things to say. I will share that with the audience when Harley's back on. But, I'm no longer one of these trust the plan people. I mean, X22, and we know these are great guys, they're friends of mine. I don't know Susan Kokinda, but I am no longer on board with this, because a lie is a lie. And the man lied about no war with Iran. And lies cannot stand. Lies can't stand. They must be exposed and accounted for.
Yeah.
So I guess what we should do is maybe remind people about your book, Consciousness and Energy Volume 4 from 2019, which basically considered what might be the deep state's plan using Trump. Show the book. You've got it right there, don't you?
I do. It's got a bunch of,
And tell people, what was your thesis?
The thesis was to get people to look at what was happening in the world, to look at Trump, to see that he was trying to put a sting together, and to finally conclude that I didn't think it mattered because it wasn't going to work, number one, and we had bigger things to worry about, and that, that's the catastrophe cycle. So I'm all about people developing their consciousness and then using that consciousness to make a difference, to make a change. And people don't know anything about consciousness. They're conscious beings, but they don't know the science behind it. And so they think it's all woo-woo, and it's not. And I've been involved in that kind of research for 45 years. And so the thing that I wanted people to get across was, look, this is what we're facing. And I think I think you're right to say that you can't feed people lies. They quit believing. And so what I'm seeing now is that the people of the US are going to take the whole thing down, period, and build something that they want, something that suits them, something that works for the average person. I see 2.5 years, maybe 3 years of war here. That's going to take a lot of people out, and a lot of people are going to struggle. And that just breaks my heart. And I think Trump thought he could just go in there and do something real quick.
Yeah.
I don't think it's the plan.
There is no plan.
Trusting the plan. The plan is over.
Yeah, there literally is no plan. He's been asked about the plan. The DOD doesn't have a plan. They have zero plan to attack this country of 90 million people. He thought if he just decapitated the Ayatollah, that would be it. And they're finding out it's very, very much not the case. These people are ready to fight to the death because they know that who's behind this war. It's not the American people. It's Israel and Bibi Netanyahu. And let me just say one other thing about lies. And what we see in the space right now, I think is truly telling because, folks, judge a tree by the fruit it bears. So Trump has been caught in this massive lie, no war with Iran. He promised it. Erica Kirk has been caught in lie after lie. And who did the knee benders hate? Who does the establishment hate? Not the liars. They hate those that expose the lies, like Tucker Carlson, who got that interview with Huckabee, like Candace Owens, who has exposed Erica's lies, like this one.
But he was not messaging people the day before saying, I'm going to be murdered. They're coming after me. Someone's going to kill me. He didn't say that.
Yeah, he did. And guess who's got the text messages?
Ooh. Candace?
You know, I got to tell you, if we don't call out lies, and for the sycophants who support these people, despite their lies, and I'm talking about Gunther Eagleman, Insurrection Barbie, I mean, these people must be part of the military-industrial complex because they're shameless in their defense of liars, and they're shameless in their persecution of the truth tellers like Tucker and Candace. That's my take. That's my take at this point, Penny.
Yeah. You know, I saw a thing that Charlie's sister just reported that he secretly filed for divorce, I think 4 days before he was killed. And that's not part of the big news cycle yet, I guess. But I thought, oh, wow. I mean, I knew because of my own intuitive abilities. It's like when he was killed, it's like something not right there.
Not only is something not right, Candace, because she's so great and she's got all these sleuths around the world that provide her intel and send her tips, she has put together a timeline which establishes that Erica Kirk was in Romania around the same time as Tyler Boyer, and Erica Kirk can never explain how she met Tyler Boyer. She says, I think it was through a senator or a congressman. Untrue. It's on the record, and all of these people have familial military ties. Yeah. So what I've been saying on my broadcast with Todd Callender and Dr. Lee Vliet is now it turns out that the military-industrial complex that seems hell-bent on endless wars, the tentacles don't reach just out to the Pacific and the Indian Ocean and the Persian Gulf with their aircraft carriers and submarines. The tentacles of the military-industrial complex reach all the way down to Main Street, Penny, and that's the most horrifying revelation in all of this. Not only did they murder Charlie with the help of maybe other nation states, Israel, France, who knows?
Yeah.
The tentacles reach down to Main Street.
I know.
So thus, the cover-up does as well.
I wrote that. I outlined the plan to destroy America and how it was being done. And, you know, people would go after one aspect of it and be totally ignoring all the rest. And I would think, but what about the bigger picture? We have been, over the last 60, 70 years, we have just been destroyed compared to what we were back when I was a kid, and I'm old now. So, so I have some history that I can say, wow, this isn't how it was when I was growing up. It wasn't like this at all. And so now nobody trusts anybody. That when you have bad leaders, that leadership, what would I call that? Their energy, their attitude, it's even in part of their speech, that kind of leaks down. What do they call that? Trickles down. That's the only thing that trickles down from the top is that attitude. And if it's one of confidence and love and positive treatment of one another, etc., then that's people begin to adopt that. When it's one of what can I get away with, and how can I manipulate, and if I don't get caught, it's okay. If that trickles down, that destroys the society, and we
100%.
have been seeing that for the last 50 years.
Yeah. Well, and
Yeah.
let me add to that and say that again, these same knee benders, I guess I didn't outline them all. It's a long list. Tim
Yeah,
Pool's on it. Ben Shapiro's on it. Of course, Mark Levin's on it. There's
yeah.
many people on it that have disappointed me, including the very unfunny Rob Schneider, who's hating on Candace. And we'll play a clip from Candace. She ties it all together as she did in her episode 6, her expose on Erica Kirk. But what I want to share with the audience is that these same knee benders, while castigating Tucker Carlson as being a traitor and Candace Owens as being pure evil, they're ignoring the other elephant in the room. Okay, not just Trump's lie about no new wars, no war with Iran. They're completely ignoring these Epstein emails, which reveal that the people at the top of the pyramid in this world are no longer human. And I really say that not in an hyperbolic, satirical sort of way. I'm saying that to do what is described by this young girl, this is a video from the Epstein files. Listen to the testimony of this girl, if you can, as she weeps and chokes her way through trying to explain what she witnessed. These people are no longer human, folks, because it would only be in the pits of hell that anybody would be endured to have witnessed this.
Kind umgebracht.
Hast du Schicksal? Das Schicksal?
Aber ein lebendes. Und die haben das dann aufgegessen.
They ate the
Und
child,
es war dann in
and the child was
und alle
alive.
anderen
There was still
Knochen,
hair,
Teile,
bones, parts,
und
eyes, and
Augen
teeth.
und Zähne. Die
You know, I couldn't sleep last night. I tossed and I turned. After listening to that, I could not sleep last night because I know it's true. I know that there's babies in cages, there's children in dungeons, and they traffic in the souls and bodies of men, women, and children, Patty. That's the other elephant in the room that, guess what? The DOJ. Pam Bondi says, what are we talking about here? The Dow's at 50,000.
I know.
That's the other reason I'm outraged. We didn't vote for this. Not investigating and bringing Epstein clients to justice. I didn't vote for any of this.
Mm-mm. No, 30 years ago, I started a blog, and one of the very early blog pieces was a report of what was happening, exactly what you just showed. And OMG, I got just swamped by people writing to say, you're just crazy. You are psychopathic. What's the matter with you? You deranged, crazy woman writing such awful stuff, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh, I guess people are not ready to hear the truth yet. And my grief for 30 years has been knowing that continues to go on. I was a counselor for years. I still am in many ways, 45 years worth of working with people. The first people who came into my office and said, we need some help, were two nuns who were they were mathematicians that were like brilliant. And actually not two nuns, one nun and her sister, two sisters. And one of them was a nun. And the one who was a nun said, I got on a bus one day. She was in New York. She was going somewhere every day to work because the government had asked her to bring her mathematical skills to some project that they were working on. So they picked her up and several others every day at this one place. And she said, I got on the bus. And when I got off the bus, like it was like a couple of years later, and she said, I've no memory of what happened in that time. So using my intuitive skills and some of her story and piecing all that together, she had been shipped somewhere to a secret location where some pretty awful stuff was happening. And I thought she was making it up. I was like, how could I pick up this awful stuff? That was the first one. And then the second one was a client from Lansing, Michigan, who was a computer programmer who had been, we'll say, Satanized. We'll make it pretty. During childhood, to absolutely cut that person off from any feeling, any ability to empathize. Just the only thing that was focused on was you will do what we ask you to do.
Yeah.
And then placed in, and those were the first two. And there have been, I'm going to say 4 or 5 others since then, along with a lot of normal clients as well. But that, the stories that I heard were like, oh, wow, something ugly is happening. And then when I went to look using my clairvoyance, I was pretty horrified. And it's not something that I like to talk about a whole lot, but it's happening. And it's, like you said, it causes you to not sleep at night once you know.
Sorry for a quick break, guys. War with Iran and the closure of the Straits of Hormuz isn't going to help. New numbers out of Washington show inflation is on the rise again. Another threat to you, your savings account, and your retirement. Ask yourself an honest question. Does your dollar go as far as it did 10 years ago? How about 5 years ago? How about yesterday? So what does the next decade look like for you and your savings? If your portfolio lacks exposure to gold, one of history's most reliable economic hedges, it's time to rethink your strategy. Gold has kept up with inflation and in many periods outpaced it. Our friends at Noble Gold Investments specialize in helping people protect their wealth with physical gold and silver. Whether you're rolling over an IRA or making a direct purchase, their team walks you through the entire process and they'll make it simple. No pressure, just education and experience. Right now, all new qualified accounts will receive a free 1/10 ounce American Gold Eagle as a thank you. There are no guarantees in any investment decision, so work with a trusted financial advisor. And then visit noblegoldinvestments.com or sgtreportgold.com and discover how easy it is to protect your financial future. That's noblegoldinvestments.com. The link is below.
Like you said, it causes you to not sleep at night once you know.
Well, that's because, listen, here's the thing. I have said several times now that hell exists on earth for some human beings. Now, this is a tough world to live in and get through, especially if you're a lover of the Holy Spirit and Jesus Christ. It's tough, right? And the Bible says you can't be a lover of this world and a lover of Jesus. And I never could quite compute that until I discovered just how evil the controllers of this world are. And by the way, if you guys recall that clip I just played of that poor little girl crying from her soul, describing, witnessing babies being eaten alive.
Yeah.
Let me just play this clip. This is Jimmy Savile from a documentary. It's brief, but listen very carefully when he says, all the bones, all the hair, all the scraps. Loves it. He loves it. Listen to this. Jimmy Savile.
All the scraps, all the bones, all the hair. That's it.
The Hampstead cover-up.
What is Kafka's?
Kafka's is they're for children. They work with the social services.
And what did they do to you?
They do sex. They touch each other. They touch me and go, they have plastic willies. And they stick in our bottom.
All the scraps, all the bones, all the hair. That's it.
He loves it. So I got to tell you, the demons run amok while truth tellers get targeted, like Candace and Tucker. And I guess we've got to pick a side. I picked the side of the truth tellers, starting with the Lord Jesus Christ, and then we can go down the line from there.
Yeah, there's no other choice. There is no other choice. If you choose anything else but the truth, you're lost. Then you don't know who to trust. You don't know what to listen to. You don't know what's real. And that's the big problem. I think, I hope what I'm seeing is not correct. And let me say this, the way that consciousness works, Nothing is set in stone, nothing. It's all dynamic right up until the very instant that the action happens, because somebody could stop and change their mind and turn around and go the other way in a hot second, and everything that would change the dynamics of everything. And we are, I think we've now, I've been saying for the last 3 months, we're right there, where the road splits and we have to choose a path. We don't want war, but here we are. And if we choose war, then the whole thing is going to come down. And that is all the nations, all the religions, all the corporations. Those are the things that will be the big losers. And that's a mess. That is a complete mess. And part of me is like, what were you thinking that this is me talking to Trump, that you invaded somebody? And I think he was trying to get a hold of Iran so that they could, because that sends a message to England. I was going to share some facts. Let me just share a few facts. So the city of London, the deep state is really composed of 3 corporations.
Oh, and by the way, just so everybody knows, Epstein equals Rothschild.
Yes.
Rothschild equals Israel. Balfour
right.
Declaration, World War I. So everybody that's on board with the Greater Israel Project is on board with the House of Rothschild, the same people that print the money out of thin air and traffic in children. I will say it once, I'll say it 1,000 times. That's the truth. Yeah.
And the Rothschilds have, there's a vision that I had years ago about the father of Meyer Amschel Rothschild, whose name was Bauer back then. That father was getting ridiculed by little kids. He was Jewish and he was living in the Jewish ghetto, but he was getting ridiculed by a bunch of little boys he couldn't say anything. It just was not okay to say anything or he would have been in trouble. And he made this decision that he was going to get control of the world and he was going to get rid of, bratty little white boys that went around making fun of grown men. And he has put that into action and he raised all of his children and then the grandchildren. That's their goal. And so here's what they have accomplished. The Rothschild Bank of England, that's theirs. The London Stock Exchange belongs to the Rothschild. All British banks. 384 foreign banks belong to the Rothschild banking system. 70 U.S. banks. The Fleet Street newspaper and publishing monopolies belong to the Rothschild. The City of London is the headquarters for worldwide Freemasonry, which was infiltrated and destroyed years ago. And they are the headquarters for worldwide money, the money cartel known as the Crown. And they are also the headquarters of the Fabian Society. And that's something that goes back a long, long ways. And they are committed to democratic socialism. And that's what was behind the Nazis way back when. And they're still behind that whole group. And the Fabian Society has control of the CIA, the FBI, the KGB, MI5, and I think MI6, the IMF, the ASIO, which is the Australian Security Intelligence Organization, the Council on Foreign Relations, the Trilateral Commission, all the Bilderberg groups, there's more than one, the Federal Reserve, the IRS, Goldman Sachs, the Israel Lobby, the Vatican, Brussels, the UN, the World Bank, the BIS, the Club of Rome, the Committee of 300, and others. And they are running the world. And that's what has to come down if we're going to get away from the manipulation and the kind of stuff that we just saw with that young girl or that Harvey's talking about. All of that is ugly, ugly. And then the United States Corporation, we're the military arm of that whole Rothschild power structure. And then there's the Vatican, which is closely aligned with Israel because they always felt that Israel was going to be their Christian territory. But the Vatican has lost sight of its Christian roots, I think.
I think so. Can I just interject and say something? I think you're directly over the target, and it's never been more evident to those of us who can think that our military, our government on a federal level, has been captured by this entity. And now people that didn't want to admit that, even Alex Jones, is having to bring on guests who state unequivocally that that is the case. Now, I want to share with everybody, what is a non sequitur? A non sequitur is a statement or conclusion that does not logically follow from the previous statement or context. I'll give you an example. Israel first is America first. That's another one of those talking points that we can't escape now. We can't escape that non sequitur because, of course, Israel first equals America first makes zero sense. Penny Kelly, and let me just share this. These people in Israel will not let non-Israelis into the bunkers for safety. And then this is how they behave.
When you're a power gay in a bomb shelter with sexy Tel Aviv power gays. What do you think, guys? You could be anywhere in the world. I think I kind of want to be here. All these hunky Israeli boys.
So that's what you're fighting for, folks. Israel first means fighting for the gays in the bunkers who openly, this man now confesses he's all over X in his videos, talking about organizing gay sex parties in the bunkers with IDF soldiers. Meanwhile, here's Max Blumenthal on Alex Jones.
George W. Bush went to war as a popular president after 9/11. The war was initially popular. This war is unpopular. There was no 9/11. Donald Trump is underwater in the polls. He could easily just pull out and say, we killed the Ayatollah. We did all this damage to them. We hit their nuclear facilities. We're done. But the Israelis will not let him do that because then they'll be left alone. And then they will be struck by Iranian ballistic missiles in retaliation. And so they're doing everything possible to keep the U.S. escalating all the way to a ground war that the U.S. cannot get out of. That's why Israel is the most dangerous force in the world to the United States, because Iran cannot force the U.S. into a war. Only Israel can. And in a ground war, the U.S. will be playing to Iran's strength, and more American soldiers will die. For Israel, it would destroy Donald Trump's legacy, and this administration will go down in flames if he goes down that route. I can't say how the war will go. I can say his administration will go down if he goes down that route.
All right, I'm going to pause it there. Boy, do I have a lot to say. Not the least of which is the official death count of U.S. military members still sits, I think, at 6, even though I know for a fact that number of 6 has been touted for several days now. And yesterday, in a city near me, spitting distance, another suburb near where I live, it was reported that a National Guard troop, a female, died overseas in this war, and that was in the newspaper. So it's at least 7, but by some accounts, it's as high as 800, maybe higher. So we're being lied to at every turn. And I'm coming back to you, Penny, but let me just say, regarding what you said about the Nazis and the people behind that entire program, boy, do I have a bomb to drop for you all. Stay tuned. But let me back up and remind people, the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia. Would you like to remind our audience who sparked that? Who was behind the Bolshevik Revolution in Russia that resulted in the deaths of millions of Christians, Penny?
So I'm not sure I can point to anybody specific there, but I know they were not the good guys. The Bolsheviks were not the good guys. I thought it was the same group of democratic socialists, but I don't know who their leader was, although I think, was it Lenin? Eventually became the leader of that. So what do you say? What do you know?
These revolutionaries would of course need funding for their operation, provided by none other than Western banking interest. In 1915, the American International Corporation was formed to fund the Russian Revolution. Its directors represented the interest of the Rockefellers, Rothschilds, DuPont, Kuhn, Loeb, Harriman, and the Federal Reserve. They included Frank Vanderlip and George Herbert Walker.
It was all part of a Zionist plan, and the Rothschild money helped fund most of that, if not all of it. And guess who helps tie all of this together? Here's the bombshell. Guys, guess where the Bolsheviks in Germany went after World War II?
Israel?
Akutsa writes, I lived through it, referring to what happened in Romania. It was a SHIT show for sure, and I saw the execution almost live.
By the way, she's talking about the execution of Nicolae Ceausescu and his wife. Now, what I did not know about that is that it's more of the same, guys. I've cited that execution of Ceausescu and his wife as sort of being a tipping point that we could all point to as what happens to despotic, tyrannical leaders once the military and the people turn against them. I've got that history all wrong. I must confess, I didn't realize that Ceausescu wanted to do many of the same things that Gaddafi was trying to do. Oil for the people, resources for the people. There was a takeover. They had a show trial. They whacked him.
Yep, I saw that.
Crazy. By the way, you really get into the history of the Nuremberg trials as well. Young boys who had to serve in the military, just lined up and shot, found guilty because they wore a uniform that was their country's uniform. Crazy what happened to them. It was a mass Christian slaughter. And the Bolsheviks, who created concentration camps, just all magically disappeared and went to Israel. Just kidding. Nope, not kidding at all. They all went to Israel, and they gave themselves new names, Hebrew-sounding ones. Yes, that's how Benjamin Milikowski becomes Netanyahu, because it just sounds more biblical, despite the fact that he is a worshiper of the occult and is obviously possessed by a lot of demons. If we're being frank, there's never enough sacrifice to Baal for Israelis. That's what it appears to be. There's never enough bloodshed, children's lives, mass murder, constantly sacrificing to their gods.
Let me pause it there, Penny. The Bolsheviks are here, and unfortunately for all of us, I thought Donald J. Trump would defend us against the Bolsheviks, but if Netanyahu is one of them, I'm sorry, all bets are off.
Yeah, I think, it's really going to come down to us, Sean, the people. That what I've seen for so many years is that the government is so corrupt, it's too compromised to fix. The structure lends itself to corruption. And when you add money into that, the corruption happens much faster. And the people everywhere are taking down governments over the next few years. That's part of the war that I see coming, is people saying, that's enough of that. That's enough lies. That's enough war. That's enough death. That's enough. That's enough. And they just go after, there are mass revolt in thinking and in action. And that starts really this fall. And it's going to be maybe a little bit of a rough period for us. But I think the people, the goal, in terms, if you look at things from a spiritual point of view, the whole thing, it comes down, doesn't deserve to continue because of that corruption, because of the Satanism that's backing that corruption and the way they trap people and compromise people. And nobody could ever do those kinds of things they are asked to do and then live with themselves afterwards. So when the structure itself lends itself to massive corruption, people wake up to that and say, no, that's not a good kind of government. We need something else. We need something smaller, something that can be watched, something that we can take part in, something that we have set up. And the bigger overarching goal, spiritual goal, if you will, is that the U.S. is the first country in the world to say, we don't need a king. We don't need a queen. We're going to govern ourselves. And so we've had 250 years of practicing self-governance. And the next stage of self-governance is what's coming at us. And that's really, I think, I'm hoping that'll be of some encouragement to people to step up, to be ready to put their 2 cents in, because it's going to come down to that. And the bigger government is, years and years ago, when I was talking with the Little Men in Brown Robes. It's a group of little men who appeared and disappeared and gave me a whole bunch of information about the future. That's another book that I wrote. They said the government is going to go the way of the Catholic Church. And at the time they said that, the Catholic Church was under fire for all of the pedophile stuff. And at the time I thought, oh no, that would never happen. And here we are.
And here we are. No, literally here we are.
Yeah.
Epstein, quote, as you probably know, I represent the Rothschild family, end quote. Epstein equals Rothschild. Rothschild equals Israel. Israel equals Bibi Netanyahu. And I guess at this point, you want another non sequitur? Bibi Netanyahu equals Trump. Who's pulling the strings here, guys? Because this is Iran. You know, as we round out this conversation, Penny, I want you to give your best advice for these military monsters who are now telling our troops that Trump was ordained by God to bring about Armageddon to spark the second coming of Jesus Christ. That's literally what they're telling our troops, and that's blasphemous, obviously, because no man knows the day or time. Now, this is Iran, folks. For people who don't know where it is on a map, this is Iran. You can see Iraq to the left. I remember in the 80s growing up, the constant war between Iraq and Iran, which was obviously fostered by the bankers to weaken both nations. All of the red you see are fierce mountains. It's almost as though God himself foretold the future and said, I will give you an almost impenetrable nation to defend you against ground troops. Now, Iran is more than twice the size of Iraq, guys. Do the math. We couldn't hold Iraq. We couldn't hold Afghanistan. And now these clowns want to try to topple Iran with ground troops? I mean, you want to talk about an absolute meat grinder. I'll tell you what, I'll go to jail before I'll send my 19-year-old son to fight in this war, Penny.
I hear you loud and clear.
That's impenetrable. And now they're talking about troops on the ground?
Yeah.
Are these people out of their minds? I think they must be, because they're telling the enlisted soldiers, command is literally telling enlisted men and women, God ordained Trump for this to bring about Armageddon so Jesus would come, the second coming of Jesus Christ. If that's not blasphemy, I don't know what is.
You know, I'll tell you a little story. I have a good friend. He was a sniper in the Marines, okay? And he was very, very Christian, Bible, you know, reading all kinds of stuff. He was married to the daughter of somebody who was really high up in the military. And he said, you don't understand, you don't realize that everybody that has made it into the upper echelons of the military is highly Christian because they hope that they will be saved, even though their job is killing people. They're Christian in the sense that they want that connection because they're not proud of what they're doing. And that struck me so deeply. And he also said, we had a number of conversations about that whole thing you just mentioned. They want Armageddon. And the exact reason was because Jesus isn't going to come back if we don't have Armageddon, and they want him to come back. And I said, that is so juvenile. It is not going to happen that way. The ancient truth about Jesus was that it was a stage of human development. And when you reached the Jesus stage, you could become a doctor, a healer, a teacher. And he developed and became this amazing healer, intuitive teacher, doctor of the soul. And they just called him Jesus, the Christ. And that really set a lot of people on their ear. They didn't like that. They didn't want that. The people in power didn't want it. But that's really, you know, the story behind how the term Jesus came to be a symbol of somebody who's highly evolved and has a highly developed consciousness. And that's what those people don't realize, is that Armageddon is just going to kill a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
It isn't going to bring Jesus. What they're not understanding is that we're in a shift of consciousness right now. a big shift. And that shift is the shift toward becoming everybody becoming or stepping in or touching at least that Jesus consciousness. And that's the return of the Jesus. It's for everybody. And the people that are hoping for Armageddon, they're like, they're in the dark ages.
Well, they are of their father, the devil. And what do they like? What do they want? What do they seek? What is their strategy for humanity? To depopulate. What do they profit from? Wars. They win on two fronts. They depopulate, usually Christians, Christian men, and they enrich themselves. And then they become so woefully corrupt down to the very fibers of their soul that they traffic in children. They're so consumed by demons that then they decide to eat babies. And I want to play this one more time because I want everybody to understand.
Yeah.
As you pick your side, as you castigate me for no longer supporting Trump in these wars, I want you to understand that Trump's DOJ does not seem to care about the clients responsible for this. They killed a child, but the child was alive.
Und die haben das dann aufgegessen.
Also ate this child.
Und es war dann nur noch Haare und
And
alle
there was still
anderen
hair,
noch
bone,
Teile
parts,
übrig.
also
Und
eyes and
Augen,
teeth.
Augen,
Oh my
Zähne.
God. This is real, folks.
Yeah.
This is as real as a heart attack, and it's going on in our world right now today. And Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and Donald J. Trump seem hell-bent on covering it all up. So I say choose life. Choose life. I'm going to choose life. I will not side with the death party, which in this case, I'm sad to report, happens to be, unless I'm proven wrong. And if I am, I will mea culpa from the rooftops. If I'm wrong, and this is all going according to plan, some secret plan to play along with Bibi Netanyahu in World War III, only to round them all up at the last minute, I will be the first person to say I was wrong. Penny Kelly, I will give you the last word.
Well, I think I have a kind of a sad note to close on. Donald Trump was kind of bragging about having killed, Ayatollah Ali Khomeini. He should be careful because the Iranians are very good at exactly tit for tat. And he should be careful come August of this year.
Why August specifically?
Just some things that I see.
Okay. All right. Well, you're a very intuitive person, a prolific author, also a naturopathic physician, because you do not want your patients to ask their doctor if Humira is right for them. You prefer they take C60 Evo, right?
Exactly. Take care of yourselves. I do. In fact, I stopped taking it for a little while thinking, let me just do a test. Is this doing something really good, really wonderful? I quit for about 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, it was like, oh, wow. I'm going to get some more of that. I need that. It's really very good stuff.
Yeah. Well, a shout out to Patty Greer, who couldn't join us today. And I'll leave a link below for her because it's her bread and butter. We want to support Patty. She's a good woman. And so the link to C60 Evo is below. I take it. I do recommend it. And our guest has been Penny Kelly. PennyKelly.com is the website. She's got another one in the works. It'll soon be online and even better. But until then, that's when we have PennyKelly.com. Penny, thank you for your time today. We appreciate you.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you to everybody out there. Take care of yourself first.
Yeah. Amen, guys. Choose life. Choose family. You know who I think really got it right? I should actually put this video up, and I think I might splice it in right here. Shout out to Owen Benjamin, symphony conductor. For podcast listeners, this is a video of their beautiful kids. And mom's role as aerobics instructor, fight promoter, trainer, nightclub owner, educator and theologian, mental health professional, that's dad in a helmet, art dealer, master cheesemaker, vampire hunter, and head of agriculture labor union in their greenhouse. It's brilliant and a family life we should all envy. Owen Benjamin absolutely chose the right path, and now his cup runneth over. I think
All
he's an
right.
example for all of us. Owen Benjamin, you're an example to all of us.
Yeah,
All
I
right.
built the same kind of life. It's important. We're there for people who haven't been able to.
Yeah. Well, you made the right choice, Penny.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks. Friends, if you're still with us, thanks so much. I remind you every single day for free. Check us out to get the real news 24/7 at sgtreport.com. And until next time, I hope there is a next time. God bless you and yours. Bye.
While the seeds of Crusades 2000 have been planted in full view of the world, all those watching could have anticipated the eventual harvest. The memories of what had happened and what would occur have been fogged by rigid ideology, fanatical religiosity, like that little clown you just saw.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Patriotic fervor, government propaganda, and ulterior motives. When we first forecast Crusades 2000, we wrote the formal battle lines for the new Crusades had been drawn when Israel was created in 1948.